Hello students, welcome to episode 1 of gravitation. Here in this episode we will revise some concept of force, the Newton's law of motion that we did in the previous class. Also we will discuss some new laws like Kepler's law and Newton's law of gravitation here in this episode, and then we end the lecture with few numericals related with the same topic. So let's start the lecture. So let us discuss about some effect of force. Force is what? Pull or push on a body. So we know that it's a pull or push on the body. So what are the effects of force that we did in the previous class also? So the some effects of the force, better if you make notes with me, so that is really helpful for you to memorize the chapter for the exams. So whatever I am going to write on the board, just try to copy down those things. So force can set a body in motion. So whenever if body is kept stationary, if we apply the force on the body, then the body sets in motion. Force can stop a moving body. If the body is moving, if we apply a force over there, then the body can stop. Force acting on a body can change the speed or direction of motion of the body. Definitely, if the body is moving with a lesser speed and if we apply a force, maybe it is possible that it increases speed, or maybe it does not increase its speed, but that it changes the direction of motion of the body. I'll give you one example in this chapter. The speed does not change, but on applying the external force, only the direction of the body gets changed. So here is, I have a very good example. So I'll give you that example in this chapter. So where speed constant, but direction of the body changes. So and the next is force can change the shape and size of the body. So if we apply the force, then on the body on which the force act can change its shape or size of the body. So types of forces, basically the three important types of force that exist in nature is, the number one is gravitational force, the second is electromagnetic force, and the third is nuclear force. So here in this chapter we have to focus about mainly on gravitational force. So the gravitational force, where this force acts, definitely we have to study this force in detail, but here I just tell you one example that you feel that force between the sun and earth, okay, between earth and moon. So the force that exert in between sun and earth is gravitational force, and the force with exert in between the earth and moon, the force because of that the earth revolves around the sun, is the gravitational force, and the force due to which moon revolves around the earth is the gravitational force. So the force which acts in between the two bodies here is the gravitational force. Here is the example of gravitational force. So whenever it is asked for the gravitational force, you should memorize these two formula, or otherwise we will study here in this chapter any two bodies in this universe exert a force. There is a force between two bodies in this universe, between the two bodies. So that force is what? The gravitational force. Next is electromagnetic force. You know that in an atom, electron revolves around the nucleus. Electron revolves, that is what the basic structure of atom says, that electron revolves around the nucleus and proton or neutron reside inside the nucleus, and the force between them is electromagnetic force, as the electromagnetic force acts between two charged particles when the charged particle in motion, because when the charged particle in motion, any charged particle is in motion, then it produces magnetic field, and the force they exert is called electromagnetic force. So it acts between proton and electron. Okay, next is nuclear force. The nuclear force is acts between the proton and neutron that resides inside the nucleus. So these are the three basic force that exist in nature. So the gravitational force between any two masses, electromagnetic force between any two charged particle, and the nuclear force is between the proton and neutron inside the nucleus. So let's recall Newton's law of motion. Definitely that will not ask in your this standard, but as it is mentioned in the textbook, so let us recall Newton's law of motion. So as we are going strictly according to the textbook, so whatever there in the textbook, we just have to finish each and everything for the exam. So what is Newton's first law? First law that you have studied, that a body continue to remain at rest or in a state of uniform motion unless and until an external force acts on that body. So if the body is in a state of rest, it will continue in its state of rest unless and until I'll apply some external force on that body. It will not even change its direction or its speed. Unless and until I applied an external force to that body. Second law states that the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to applied force. The rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to applied force, meaning P by dt, rate of change of momentum, is directly proportional to applied force. Change in momentum, P is momentum. So rate of change of momentum is directly, this is the sign for directly proportional. So what is the result of this Newton's second law? You should know F is equals to ma is the result of Newton's second law of motion, and here P is called momentum, which is equals to P equals to mv, that you should know. F is the external force applied. So F is equals to ma is the result of Newton's second law of motion. So third law, for every action there is equal and opposite reaction. So that is the Newton's third law. So the example of Newton's third law, suppose this is a table and a book is kept on a table or pen is kept on a table, then this pen exert a force, action force on the table, and the table exerts equal and opposite force, that is the reaction force to this pen. So that is what Newton's third law. To every action there is equal and opposite reaction. Next is uniform circular motion. This is very simple and important concept. Suppose this is a circle and body is moving along its circumference. Body is moving in a circular path. So with the constant speed, the speed of the body is not changing. Okay, this is the center of the circle. Here the speed is not changing, but you observe here at every position the direction of the body keeps on changing. Here the direction is downward, here the direction is upward, here the direction is your eastward, here the direction is westward. So at every point direction keeps on changing. So that means here you can think that there is some external force that acts on a body and that changes its direction. So that type of motion in which the body moves in a circular path with uniform speed, but direction changes then the motion is called uniform circular motion. Okay, so with uniform body move in a circular path with uniform speed but direction keep on changing is uniform circular motion. So here you can conclude two things. First is that its velocity is not constant. Why velocity is not constant? Because direction changes. So direction, speed with direction is velocity. If both speed and direction constant, then we say that the body is having constant velocity. But here the velocity is not constant and the motion here is accelerated motion. It produces some acceleration although its speed is constant. So these are the two things that you can conclude when a body is uniform circular motion. And what are the examples of uniform circular motion that you can give? Earth revolves around the sun. Earth revolves around the sun. So that is an example of uniform circular motion. Or you can give another example that moon revolves around the earth. That is also the example of uniform circular motion. So uniform circular motion, and if we find the velocity changes, and if we want to find the magnitude of the velocity in uniform circular motion, then we can use the formula. It is circumference upon time. So circumference is what? 2 pi r if this body of radius r and time is t. So the formula that we use to calculate the velocity when body moves in a uniform circular motion is 2 pi r upon t, where t is the time period and r is the radius of the circular path in which the body revolves. So you can here write r is the radius of the circular path and t is the time period of revolution. You have to note down each and everything, whether I am writing with the red pen also. So these are equally important. So the next is that if you observe the body is moving in a circular path with uniform speed, still it changes its direction. So there would be some external force that comes into picture which changes the direction of the body. So that force which helps to change their direction, change the direction of this body continuously, is a centripetal force. So if we want to calculate the magnitude of the centripetal force, here is the magnitude of the velocity when body moves in a uniform circular motion. So the magnitude of this centrifugal force is mv square upon r, where m is the mass of the body. Since the body is moving in a circular path, so body must have some mass. Every body have some mass. So m is the mass of the body, v is the velocity that we have calculated by that formula 2 pi r by t, and r is again the radius of this circular path. So the magnitude of this centripetal force is mv square. Magnitude of the force, centripetal force is mv square by r. Here the question comes, if this is the magnitude of the force, magnitude means the value of that force, then what would be the direction? So always remember, this is very important thing, if this is the center, so and here the body, this is the motion of the body, so here in this line the centripetal force acts, and it always acted towards the center. That is the direction of this force, directed towards the center. So this force is also called center seeking or center loving force. You can note this point, that center seeking or center loving force, because its direction of this force is always towards the center. And if this shows the direction of motion of the body, this is the centripetal force. Centripetal force which acts along the radius and towards the center. We can also conclude that the centripetal force acts always perpendicular to the direction of motion. So it always acts perpendicular to the direction of motion. Kepler's law. So Kepler's has given the three laws, popularly called Kepler's law of planetary motion. So let's study them one by one. The first law is also called the law of orbit. So in the exam it can be also asked that state first Kepler's first law or state the Kepler's law of orbit. So it is also called the law of orbit. So it states that the orbit of the planet, this law explains about the orbit of the planet. So it states that the orbit of the planet is ellipse. What is the shape of the ellipse? It is oval shape, egg-like shape. And the ellipse, just like circle has only the one midpoint, that is it's called center. Similarly, the ellipse has the two centers, or we can say it has two focal points. Okay, two focal point. The orbit of the planet is ellipse. Okay, ellipse has just like oval shape. The orbit of the planet is ellipse with the sun at one of the foci. With the sun is situated at one of its foci. That is said by Kepler's first law of planetary motion. That is what? Law of orbit also. Kepler's second law, it says that the line joining the planet and the sun sweeps equal area in equal interval of time. So let us understand this law, what the Kepler's second law states. So we know that according to Kepler's first law, the sun is situated at one of the foci of ellipse, and planet revolves in a elliptical path around the sun. So in this elliptical path the planet moves, and sun is situated at one of the foci of the ellipse. So let the planet covers a distance AB and CD in equal time. That distance are not equal, but the planet covers a distance AB and CD in equal time. Okay, in equal time. Then the Kepler's second law states that the area of SAB and area of SCD are equal. Although that distance are not equal, but the distance are covered in equal time, then the area swept by the planet would be equal if they travel in equal interval of time. So what is the conclusion of Kepler's second law? Area of SAB equals to area of SCD. So they don't have equal distance distance, but they sweeps out equal area in equal interval of time. Here from this law we can also conclude that the linear speed of the planet is more when it is closer to the sun, because here the speed distance is more, still the area swept would be same in equal time. So we can say that the linear speed of planet, okay, is more when it is closer to the sun. So that is one of the conclusion from Kepler's second law. Kepler's third law states that the square of the time period of revolution of a planet around the sun is directly proportional to the cube of the mean distance of the planet from the sun. Suppose this is a elliptical path in which the planet revolves. So where the sun is situated according to the first law of Kepler's, sun is situated at one of the foci. Okay, sun is situated at one of the foci. So according to this law, whenever the planet moves around the sun, so that is the distance between the planet and the sun. If the planet comes to this position, this is the distance between the planet and the sun. If the planet comes to this position, this is the distance between the planet and the sun. So if we take the mean or average of all the distances, if this is R1, this is R2, this is R3, like that. So if R is the mean distance, we can't take any particular distance, mean distance of the planet from the sun, okay, from sun. So you have to mention these things. What is R? The mean distance. Or you can consider that is the distance between the planet and the sun. But you have to take the average distance. The average distance between the planet and the sun. Okay, the average distance between planet and the sun. And T is what? The time period with which the planet complete its one revolution around the sun. Suppose this is the position. If the planet again comes to this position, then this is called the time period of the planet. So the time period of the planet is what? The time period, the time taken to complete its one revolution. T is the time period and R is the mean distance of the planet from the sun. Then Kepler third law states that the square of the time period is directly proportional to cube of the mean distance of planet from the sun. T square proportional to R cube. That is the Kepler's third law. Newton's universal law of gravitation. So according to this theory, every object in this universe attracts every other object with a force. That force is called gravitational force. With a force, that force is directly proportional to the product of the masses of the two bodies and inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. That is the important thing. So suppose these are the two bodies. Okay, consider two bodies of mass m1 and m2. They are separated by a distance d. Okay, then the two body attracts each other with a force. The two bodies attract each other with a force. That force is directly proportional to the product of the masses. Meaning, directly proportional meaning, if the masses increase, then the magnitude of that force also increases. And inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the two objects or two body. If d is the distance between the two masses, two body of masses m1 m2, then that force is inversely proportional to square of the distance between them, meaning if that distance increases, the magnitude of the force decreases. That is what the meaning of inversely proportional. And directly proportional meaning, if this increases, this also increases. Inversely proportional, this increases, this decreases. So if we combine both of them, so we get m1 m2 upon d square, right? And if we remove this proportionality sign, then we get f is equals to g m1 m2y d square, where this g is called universal gravitational constant and f is called here the gravitational force. So g is called universal gravitational constant, universal gravitational constant, and here the f is called gravitational force that is always attractive in nature. Okay, universal gravitational constant. So we have studied the Newton's law of gravitation, which states f is equals to g m1 m2 by d square. Okay, where f is gravitational force and g is universal gravitational constant. So what is universal gravitational constant? So what happen if we take m1 m2 both has one unit and d is also the one unit. If m1 m2 is 1 and d is also 1, then your g becomes equals to f. So from here we can define the definition for universal gravitation constant, that it is numerically g if m1 equals to m2 m1 m2 and d all three are equals to 1, then we can say f is equals to g. So the universal gravitational constant is numerically equals to gravitational constant which exists between the two bodies of unit masses. If the two body of unit masses and kept at unit distance apart, then whatever the gravitational force between them is equals to numerical equals to universal gravitational constant. Okay, so the numeric value of universal gravitational constant is 6.67 into 10 is to power minus 11. The unit SI unit for universal gravitational constant is Newton meter square per kg square. So that can ask in exam. So SI unit of universal gravitational constant, and the value of G was first experimentally measured by Henry Cavendish. So that name also you should know. Gravitational force, the force due to the mutual attraction between two objects by virtue of their masses. Because of their masses, the two bodies attract each other with the force. That is what your gravitational force. So that is the definition of the gravitational force. And how can we calculate the magnitude of this gravitational force? That we have already studied in Newton's law of gravitation. F is equals to z m1 m2 by d square, where d is the distance between the two bodies, and m is the masses. So how this force change when the masses of the two body get affected or the distance between them get affected. So if the mass of the each body gets double, if the mass of the both body get doubles, means your mass m1 get 2 m1 and your m2 get 2 m2. So if the mass of both the masses get double, then 2 m2 2 into 2 4, then force becomes 4 times. Okay, if both the masses get double, then the force becomes 4 times. If only one mass get double, then force becomes 2 times. Force becomes double. Suppose if this mass becomes 2 times and this mass becomes 3 times, then the total force becomes 6 times. Okay, and how if the distance get double? If distance get double, suppose here it becomes becomes 2d, then your new distance will be 2d square. So because it is directly proportional to the square of the distance, so the force become 1 by 4 times. So if the distance get double, force becomes 1 by 2 square, so 1 by 4 times. So if distance get triple, then force become 1 by 3 square, means 1 by 9 times. So that can come in exam, that what would be the effect on the force if the distance between the two bodies becomes double. Double means 2d. 2d whole square means 1 by 4. So the force become 1 by 4 times. Okay, that also you can note down. What are the characteristics, some important characteristics of this gravitational? ONAL, gravitational force. So this gravitational force important. This is the weakest force in nature. No other force is stronger than this force. This is the weakest force. So we have studied in our today's lecture the three main types of force: the gravitational force, electromagnetic force, nuclear force. So this is the weakest among all these forces. It obeys inverse square law because here the force is directly proportional to the square of the distance between the two bodies. These are the central forces, meaning that they act upon between the center of the distance between the two masses, and these are always attractive force. They are never repulsive force. They always attract. The two bodies always attract each other. They never repel. Newton's law of gravitation from Kepler's law. In the exam, this question may ask that they will ask you derive or explain Newton's law of gravitation from Kepler's law, or derive Newton's law of gravitation from Kepler's law. So let's see how can we derive this. So here first we have to write, we know when body moves in uniform circular motion, then the velocity will be 2 pi r upon t. Right, that we did, where r is the radius of the circular path and t is the time period. Okay, t is the time period. Now when a body moves in a circular path, then the force that the external force that acts on the body, that changes its direction, because at every place, that at every point the direction keep on changing. So which external force here that changes the direction? Yes, centripetal force. So the force that acts on it to change its direction is centripetal force. That is also called central seeking force. Okay, so centripetal, the magnitude of centripetal force is mv square by r. That is the magnitude of centripetal force. This way only you have to reproduce in exam. So now we can substitute the value of v here, 2 pi r upon t. What we did? We have substituted the value of v here, and here is r. Okay, now f is equals to m by r into, here it is 4 pi square by r square into t square, right? Okay, now you can multiply and divide this thing. What we did, we have opened the square. Now I am just rewriting this sentence here, and then I multiply and divide by r. I am multiplying and dividing by r. Then what I got? F is equals to m upon r square 4 pi square r cube by t square. Okay, r cube by t square. But from Kepler's law, we know that t square is proportional to r cube, or t square is equal to kr cube if we remove that proportionality sign. So according to Kepler's law, t square proportional to r cube. I have removed the proportionality sign over here. So t square is equals to kr cube. So we can say that t square r cube. So here, from here we can say that the r cube upon t square is equals to what? K, right? Is equals to k. So here if I substitute 4 pi square k by r square, so these are another constant, because m is constant, 4 pi square is constant, k is constant. So here we can conclude that f is proportional to, if we just include all of them under the proportionality sign, so we can conclude f is inversely proportional to 1 by r square. And this is what given by the Newton's law of gravitation. Hence we have derived Newton's law of gravitation from Kepler's law. Let's take one question. Here Mahendra and Virat are sitting at a distance of 1 meter from each other. Okay, so suppose this is Mahendra and this is Virat. Okay, so this is Mahendra and this is Virat, and they are sitting at a distance of 1 meter. From the distance between them is 1 meter. That is given in your question, and the Mahendra weight is 75 kg. The Virat's weight is 80 kg. Right, that is given in the question. So what is the gravitational force between them? So very simple, we can calculate the gravitational force G m1 m2 by d square by the formula. Here G we always take 6.67 into 10 raised to power minus 11. M1 is 75, M2 is 80, and distance between them is 1 square. So if you multiply this and this, and if you solve, so you will get how much? 4.002 into 10 raised to power minus 7 Newton, because the unit of force is Newton. So you got this. The gravitational force between them is this. Now it is asked, if Mahendra is sitting on a frictionless bench and start. Now Mahendra is moving towards the Virat. Okay, he is sitting on frictionless bench and he is moving towards the Virat with 0 velocity. What will be the Mahendra velocity after of motion towards Virat after 1 second? So after 1 second, what will happen, since the initial velocity is 0, time is 1 second. Time is 1 second. We can calculate the acceleration. So acceleration is equals to what? Force upon mass, because in Newton's second law I have given you the formula, F equals to ma. So what is the force, gravitational force between them? 0.02 into 10 raised to power minus 7. And what is the weight of the Mahendra? 75. So when you divide these two, you will get 5.34 into 10 raised to power minus 9 meter per second square. So that is the acceleration with which the Mahendra is moving towards the Virat. Now we can calculate V is equals to U plus AT. Since V is 0, A is 5.34 into 10 ki power minus 9 into T. So V is this. Definitely this velocity will change in due course of time. After some time the velocity changes. Why the velocity changes? This you just have to give the answer. Because since the Mahendra, this is Mahendra and this is Virat. Mahendra is moving towards the Virat with that velocity. So when he moves towards the Virat, definitely what will happen, or definitely he is moving towards the Virat. This distance decreases. So you can just write the distance between, when Mahendra started moving towards Virat, the distance between the Mahendra and Virat decreases. So the distance decreases, it means the force, gravitational force between them increases. The distance between them decreases, so gravitational force between them is increases. Gravitational force between them is increases, therefore acceleration goes on increasing. Acceleration increases because, using the formula, if force increases then acceleration increases, and if acceleration increases then the velocity, because V is equals to U is 0, U plus A2, so velocity also increases. Very less velocity, but velocity when he approaches Virat, then the velocity increases, as you will say acceleration increases. Why the acceleration increases? Because the force increases. Force increases as the distance between them goes on decreasing. Okay, so you have to mention the three sentences to give the answer of this point. This, yes, velocity changes with time because acceleration changes. Why acceleration changes? Because they approach each other. Means Mahendra is moving towards Virat, so the force of attraction between them increases because the distance between them that decreases. So here in this episode we did the main important two laws, the Newton's law of gravitation and the Kepler's law of planetary motion. Both are equally important for the examination point of view. And also we did one numerical problem that is related with your Newton's law of gravitation. We will covering rest part of the chapter in our next episode. So keep practicing.